What is going on, everyone? And in this video, I'll be giving you my UFC Vegas 89 main card predictions for the upcoming event taking place this Saturday, March 23rd, 2024. Out of the UFC Apex, Rose Namajunas will be taking on Amanda Ribas in the main event of the evening. Screaming a UFC Apex card is what it is. We've only got 2 more fight nights before we get into the goods of UFC 300, and you really look at that one, you're just like, absolute banger of a card, top down. Do all the predictions. I'm going to do all the predictions for that one in video, hopefully. But yeah, we got to get there first. And just is one of those things where you're just like, the main event's questionable. The co-main event to me is questionable. And then the rest of the cards just feel like they could be on the prelims of some card. No disrespect. Who knows? Maybe some of these fights are just absolutely insane. It's the craziest thing ever. Last event, I did go 6-6 and won no contest. So obviously fell down a whole little bit. Half and half is what it is. Had to calm it down, I guess, on the predictions because I was doing pretty good week to week, and then we hit the 6-6. So still not like an 0 and maybe not a 1-12, a 1-11. That's pretty tragic. But still, hopefully we do better on this one. It's gonna be hard, I think, because a lot of these fights could swing either way. You got some of the underdogs could just come out of nowhere and do what they need to do and win, or you could just have the favorites just crush them, right? So I think it's like a lot of coin flips when it comes down to stuff like that, especially at a level where it's a little bit lower, right? We have a lot of guys who could be gassing out or just getting caught with things that normally at the higher level you're not going to get caught with. So we'll see. But either way, go ahead and jump right into the first fight. In the first fight on the main card, we have Fernando Padilla, 15-5, taking on Luis Pajuelo, who is coming in with an 8-1 record, making his UFC debut. Technically, he did have a fight in Dana White Contender Series, which he won via knee and then ground and pound punches, and just basically smashed him. Round number 1, he defended the takedown, right? So that was good to see. I think it's one of those things where you have a guy coming in off Dana White Contender Series, super aggressive. He'll walk through some shots, but then he's fighting a pretty good guy right now. Pajuelo, if you look at the guys that he's fought, really the best guy that he fought had a 13-2 record coming out of Argentina. But then after that, he had a win and a loss. I don't know. It's hard sometimes when you look at these guys because they run through who they need to run through, right? I mean, he did beat that, Robbie Ring, who was 6-0. But again, who knows if that really means anything kind of thing? When you're fighting a guy like Fernando Padilla, who's coming in with a lot more of a background, right? He has a little bit more of a sample size. He's 15-5, so he's lost 5 times, but at the same time, he's won 15 times, and he's fought in the UFC twice, and both fight. Well, the last one went to decision, so he has a decision in the UFC, regardless if he won it or not. And then he was able to take out Julian Erosa, who I think was a pretty good win against him. Now, granted, Erosa could questionably be chinny at this point, but still, like, to fight a guy like that, I thought that was pretty good. And then the guys on his record, he's fought people at 30, what is that, 30-19, 19-6. Like, he's definitely, he was an LFA, so he's had some fights where he's Derek Minor, Sergio Perez. He's had fights against guys that, like, he didn't get absolutely destroyed by, right? So if you look at his last 4 losses, just in regardless if it was UFC or not, they were all by decision, right? So I think Padilla is very tough, right? So we saw in his last fight against Kyle Nelson where Kyle Nelson was pretty much able to chop away at his legs and then just shut down the octagon to the point where, well, not he wasn't shutting down the octagon, but Nelson was able to move around the octagon to where he kind of just shut out Padilla's style, where Padilla wants you to be right in front of him. He wants to be able to just start landing the boxing combinations on you, right? Whip to the body, teep kick to the body, but you have to be in the range to do it. He's not really good when he starts chasing people around. He's just not able to land too much of his thing, and that was kind of for Kyle Nelson. He was able to get in there, utilize some leg kicks, throw good combinations, in and out movement. It was just making Padilla kind of chase him versus Padilla like locking him into a corner and just being able to tee off on him. Pajuelo, he's coming in tough. He's going to be super aggressive. I don't think Padilla's going to be able to take him down consistently. let alone whether or not Padilla even attempt some sort of grappling exchange. I think for Padilla though, like if he's facing a guy who's gonna come forward and come after him, like that could be good for him though, because then he's gonna bring him into that boxing range. But still, I think Padilla can go 3 rounds. And that's my biggest thing here. It's like, let's say Pajuelo comes in super aggressive, he's light him up, but then Padilla's able to survive a little bit. Then he starts mixing in some things, and he's surviving, and then he starts letting, and then that's when Pajuelo might start to fade a little bit because he's so fresh inside the UFC. But he's a tough guy, so that's why it's hard to pick on these ones, just because I mean, you have a guy who's coming in, right? He did have a decision against a guy who was 3-3, but pretty much the rest of his fights were all by finish. So it's like if he doesn't finish someone like Fernando Padilla, is he going to be able to like win a decision, right? And that's the thing where I just don't know, if I'm gonna go with a guy who's making his UFC debut against someone like Fernando Padilla, who is tough, who I just don't see getting ran over, and who can fire back with a lot of stuff as well. And he's very tough with a good chin, so he can eat some of these shots. He'll be able to trade back and forth. Padilla, I think, may need to utilize a little bit more aggression on his side. I think, yeah, obviously you want to have the guy right in front of you, but if that's not happening, he's got to find a way to cut off the octagon, get Pajuelo to be backing up, and then he's lighting him up, right? And you just got to start whipping the combinations and just being aggressive, fighting aggression with aggression. But yeah, I think it's a tough fight for either guy. I think it could be neither one of these guys getting annihilated, but a tough decision. So for me, I'm going to go Fernando Padilla to defeat Luis Pajuelo. So I'm going to win by decision. And so we move on into the second fight. We've got Billy Quarantillo, 18-5, taking on Youssef Zalal, 10-5-1 in a featherweight bout. So this is a pretty good matchup just because Quarantillo, I think, is underrated in the sense of, he got destroyed by Edson Barboza. He loses to Shane Burgos. Decision, though. Lost to Gavin Tucker. Decision. But because he got destroyed by Barboza, I think a lot of people thought that maybe he could be easily taken out. And then we saw his win against Damon Jackson, which wasn't a finish, but it was a fight where he came back and he showed that classic ability to absorb damage and then have, just the will to keep going, the cardio. Granted, he wasn't all the best shape either, but he just finds a way to just come back and start pouring it on. And I think that was the reason why he won that decision, because he did get taken down 3 times, right? But then he defended 10 takedowns. So I think he can be taken down, but he's going to make it a war. Like, even the moment he gets back up, he's going at it again, right? He's in your face. He's trying to take you out. And his striking, he can definitely be hit, but that's part of his game plan. Now, against a guy like Barboza, I mean, you can't let Barboza just cleanly, flying knee you, right? Or just anything like that. You can't let a striker like that land that cleanly on you, because it's just not going to go well for you, which is why he might not be able to hit that next level, right? He fights a better guy who's just boom, boom, and then it's all over. For Youssef Zalal, he is coming into this one off of 4 losses. Well, majority decision draw in his last one. Either way, a lot of his fights in the significant strikes have gone, close or whatever, and all by decisions. So he's not really a finisher. Can he land his own takedowns? Yes. Can he be taken down by a better wrestler? Yes. Can it be kind of similar, like when he fought Sung Woo Choi? 3 takedowns he landed, 2 takedowns for Choi. Yeah, it can be similar in there too. And then he lost because he got outstruck in that one. So he can definitely grapple. But the issue here is, like, if Zalal just starts diving in for takedowns, right? And he's not able to get him, or Quarantillo is able to get back up, whatever, and then he starts pouring it on him. Right, it's just a matter of who's going to be having that gas tank and who can switch the fight. So maybe Zalal is able to take him down or just control him up against the fence. Quarantillo is going to be able to keep landing and landing more of these things, more of these strikes, whereas Zalal might try to sit back and try to only land a takedown. Maybe he throws a strike here and there, but that's not going to work the entire fight. That's just not going to do it. And so my concern is that Zalal might be able to get some takedowns, right? But he also has to be worried about getting reversed or taken down himself, especially when he gets a little bit more tired. I don't think Zalal will be able to finish him because he hasn't finished anyone. But he's tough, right? He's definitely tough, but he's fighting a guy who's going to keep coming, who's going to eat some of his shots, who's going to just be a zombie, and then in the third round starts landing on him. Like, it's just a grueling process to deal with. And because Zalal doesn't seem like one of these guys who could just one-shot KO him with something, I don't have any reason to go with him here to think like, oh, he's going to win. No, I'm not saying that can't happen or he can't put Quarantillo in a bad position and submit him because I'm sure he could, but I'm just not seeing it in what I'm looking at. Whereas Quarantillo, it's like, I feel like he could definitely take this fight deep, turn it around, or just make it a grueling fight from start to finish. And then he's winning a decision just because he's landing more. He's the aggressor, right? And even if he gets taken down, maybe he reverses the position. Maybe when he gets back up, he's just onslaught, right? And so the judges could be like, well, he did get taken down 4 times, but when they stood up, he's clearly landing some more significant strikes. So I just think Quarantillo can win more ways, whereas Zalal, he has to find some sort of control or he has to badly hurt Quarantillo and take him out of his game. And even then he has to like put him away. And I just don't think he's going to be a Shane Burgos or an Edson Barbosa, right? And that's just my thing. So I'm gonna go Billy Quarantillo. I think Zalal is tough, so I'm gonna go Quarantillo to defeat Youssef Zalal by decision. In the third fight on the main card, we have Payton Talbott 7-0 taking on Cameron Saaiman 9-1 in a bantamweight bout. So for Payton Talbott, he's coming in with this one where he had a UFC victory in his last one, his UFC debut. Then before that, he won Dana White's Contender Series fight, unanimous decision. The last one, though, against Nick Aguirre was a submission in round number 3, rear naked choke. And that was a pretty good one. I think the biggest thing for me, first round, stay composed, and then he was able to turn the fight back around, utilize his striking, and then he ends up landing a submission. So he can definitely, he's aware in specific positions, even though he's not engaging, right? He's not initiating the wrestling. He can still defend himself, and he can still pull off some grappling. But I think mainly on the feet, he's going to be the longer opponent, and that's really what his striking comes into play. He keeps people at the end of his punches, and I think Saaiman is going to be there to be hit. Like, even if you look in his, especially if you look in his last fight against Christian Rodriguez, Saaiman was definitely eating some of those shots here and there. It's definitely a guy who can walk in on punches because he's trying to close the distance, and then that's going to work towards Talbot's advantage. If you can get him to come in a little bit too aggressive, he can take advantage of those moments. He has to be worried about getting taken down, though, and I think that's just another thing is Saaiman gonna be able to take him down consistently, right? Or hold him down. If Talbot just pops back up, he could shoot for 5 takedowns and get 4 of them, but it doesn't really matter if he's not really able to do anything with it, or if Talbot's able to reverse it. But on the feet, I think for Talbot, he just needs to basically piece up Saaiman from a distance, but be super aggressive to the point where Saaiman tries to just dive in for a takedown. If he can get him to start doing that, like, I kind of just see him taking over the fight, and then it's just a matter of, maybe he's able to get a finish. But I think Saaiman's pretty tough. He did face his first loss against Christian Rodriguez in the last one, but it was by a decision. So I think he still is pretty tough. He is dangerous. I think both guys have solid chins, right? I'm talking about Saaiman walking into a lot of things, but Talbot too ate some pretty good shots in his last one where you could see, but he handled it well and he kept walking through. So it's gonna be a good fight, man. You got a guy who's 9-1, and a guy who's 7-0, and so we'll see what we can get out of this one. But for me, both guys are tough, so I'm gonna go Payton Talbot to defeat Cameron Saaiman by decision. In the fourth fight, we have Edmen and Shahbazyan 12-4 taking on AJ Dobson 7-2 in a middleweight bout. So this is an interesting one just because Shahbazyan, in his last in his last four losses, all of them were by finish except one. But even in that fight, he got taken down 3 times. So my concern here for Shahbazyan is not that like he's trash or anything like that, but I think it's more of just like, if this dude can't finish his opponent, right? Like, let's say round 1, round 2, and just like dominate them. He's gonna be in a world of trouble in that third round, right? Especially against guys who can take him down, who aren't going to just, I guess, not have any like counters or start turtling when he starts teeing off. Because it's kind of predictable. Like he comes out really fast. He can really whip some good combinations. He has a great jab, right? He can even utilize some of his, he might even throw in a takedown. But for the most part, like if you can throw him off of you, like defend some of these takedowns and fire back a little bit and even get into like one grappling exchange, he just kind of gasses out. And for me, it's not like AJ Dobson's the best guy in the world or anything like that, but he does look tough. He has the capabilities of taking people down. And I think his striking is kind of underrated. It is a little bit snipery, right? He's not just swinging wildly. He will pick his shots. He throws a lot of kicks, heavy kicks. So he is dangerous, right? And I think this is one of those ones you're like, oh, Edmen Shaw, he's going to go out there, he's going to tee off on him, whatever. But then you just look at AJ Dobson and it's like, okay, well, if he does do that, Dobson can definitely fire back with something of his own, but then he also might be able to mix in a takedown. And even if they get into a grappling exchange, that's not good for Shahbazyan. Even if neither of them end up on the floor, just any of this grappling, wrestling, getting any, Shahbazyan tired at all is just not good for him. We've seen it time and time again. So for me, I liked what I saw with AJ Dobson in his last fight, right? In that third round, in the second round, he did not look like he was like, gassed out or anything. I like what I see. He's got 3 decisions, regardless if 2 were losses. He's still been able to go 3 rounds, and he's not like, gassed out, because I think his shot selection is pretty good, and he's not just wildly swinging. He doesn't get overly excited. So yeah, for me, I'm expecting something similar. I think Shahbazyan goes out here, starts lighting him up. Maybe he goes for the leg kicks, right? He's doing his thing, and then he gets cracked with something, slows down a little bit. They end up into a couple of exchanges with the wrestling and then to the grappling. And in that third round, Shahbazyan comes out and he looks like he's dying. And then we've got Dobson trying to take his head off. So I'm going to go AJ Dobson because I just have zero faith in Shahbazyan. I'm going to take AJ Dobson to defeat Edmen Shahbazyan by round 3, KO TKO. In the co-main event of the evening, we have Karl Williams, and he'll be taking on Justin Tafa. So initially, I looked at in the heavyweight bout. So initially, when I thought about this, I looked at it and I was like, Karl Williams, the wrestling, he's got that 8 takedowns, right? But he only had 1 takedown against Chase Sherman, right? So Sherman was able to defend 9 takedowns. Now, I'm not saying Justin Tafa is going to be able to defend 9 takedowns, right? I'm not saying that. But he doesn't really give these guys the opportunity to take him down. So he has 100% takedown defense, but I think it's literally on like one or two takedown attempts. So it doesn't really show the full story just because he's knocking a lot of these guys out. And initially I thought in my head, like, look, Karl Williams, he's going to take him down 500 times, right? He's going to just start shooting him for takedowns. But when you watch his fight against Chase Sherman, it's just highly sketch because he's one of these guys where his striking, it's just not it. Right? It just doesn't look clean. It just looks a little bit wild. The big hooks, like he's just throwing bombs, hoping something lands because he just tries to get close to you so he can take you down. Now, the issue I have with that is if Tafa is able to defend like the initial takedown, maybe not by like actually getting taken down because Williams explodes for it. Maybe he just gets out of the way kind of thing, or he just pushes him off or whatever because he's still fresh. I mean, this dude could eat an uppercut. I mean, the moment I feel like Tafa lands something, it could just rattle the entire situation. And then we get Williams just shooting in for takedowns. And that just gets a little sketchy. Now, at the same time, Williams could just take Tafa down. And then the next thing you know, he's just killing him or something. Or it could be the most boring fight ever. And you just have Williams taking Tafa down each round and holding him down and trying to kind of finish him, but doesn't really. And then, stuff like that. So it's definitely like either Williams is going to win by smothering him on the floor or Tafa's going to just take his head off early on and just it's going to be like, oh, shit. But honestly, like even with Tuivasa, right, I went with him and it was just like, you know what? He did exactly what I thought he needed to do to win. It just didn't work this time. Now, will I ever pick him again? Probably not, unless he fights like Harry, unless he's fighting a heavyweight like Harry Hunsucker. But outside of that, I'm just never doing it. But Tafa, he doesn't look that tragically bad yet. I mean, he's lost decisions, right? He lost a split decision, lost a unanimous decision. Only was finished in his first fight in the UFC in 2019, so he's definitely not had that happen again. And he's looked pretty solid. So, throwing a high kick up there, I don't know. I do think the better striker is obviously Tafa. Tafa is not going to just start running in there and just hoping he lands a punch. He's going to try to set it up. And I'm sure he's aware of getting taken down. So I'm not going to go with the guy who could win by blanket. Go with the guy who crushed people. So I'm going to go with Justin Tafa to defeat Karl Williams. I'll take him to win by round 1, KO TKO. And so we move on into the main event of the evening, and this is a banger. No, I'm just kidding. It's an okay fight. Like, it's definitely like it's not a main card, but it's like a prelim, something in there. So you have Amanda Ribas, 13-4, taking on Rose Namajunas, 12-6, in a women's flyweight bout. Right off the bat, I would just have to say, like, Amanda Ribas, super aggressive. Striking is just not it, though, right? Another one of these fighters who's just going to run in, try to use her brute force, but can easily be tagged in that chaos. She's been on a win-loss kind of thing. When she's fought either a better striker or a better grappler, she's not been able to win the fights. But I would say more striking, right? She loses to Caitlin Chukagian. She loses to Macy Barber. She loses to Marina Rodriguez. So, she can definitely be finished because I do think she leaves herself exposed a little bit. And I think Namajunas, she hurt her hand in the last fight, so I don't know how much that affected it or whatever. But it was a unanimous decision loss to Mendenfield, but at the same time, it wasn't like the worst thing I've ever seen. She did go for 6 takedowns, was unable to get any, but she also defended a takedown from Field. That fight didn't look the best for her, but it wasn't like, oh man, it's all over. Like, even her fight against Carla Esparza, which was just the most boring thing you've ever seen in your life. Even that one, though, split decision loss, was like, it was more of just like, okay, it's not that you're bad, but it's just like, what do you, like, you could have done so much more. So I don't think we've seen like the fall off of Rose Namajunas. And you got to remember that this is the person that has beaten the current champion, right? So, like, or the current champion at 115 pounds. Obviously, he's fighting at 125 now, but still, like, think about it. I don't think she's done yet. And against someone who I feel like she can throw up a head kick or keep that distance, she has that wide stance, bounces back. She could definitely catch Ribas in here somewhere. Now, she has to be careful, I think, of just maybe even getting taken down or running into Ribas. If Ribas is just able to shut down the octagon and just put on this wild exchange where she just, Namajunas can't get out of it, like that would be concerning. But I think for the most part, Namajunas is overall a better fighter. Even when it comes to the grappling, she can compete with that too. I'm just a little bit sketched out by Ribas just because you just so obviously she leaves herself exposed to be hit. And I don't think we can look at Rose and be like, nah, she's done. She's had 2 competitive decision losses, but nah, she's done. I think this could be one of those fights where we're like, oh, forgot about that side of her, right? And she ends up getting a finish. Oh, whether it's by submission or KO TKO. I think like a Dustin Poirier kind of thing. You look at someone who kind of just has a couple of unfortunate losses and you're kind of like, they're done, and they come out and they just destroy the person. So, I mean, do I think Namajunas can be champion again? I mean, if she wins this fight just dominantly, yes. If she lets it slip away to another decision, no. But I do think it's a fight she can win. I do think it's a fight she can showcase some dominance. So we'll see. But I'm going to go Rose Namajunas. She's taken on some of the best strikers in the world, and she's been able to finish some of them. and she's been able to submit people too. So yeah, I'm gonna go Rose Namajunas to defeat Amanda Ribas. I'll take her to win by round 3 KO TKO.